Well, the legacy media is working overtime to paint Syria as a terrorist state now that Bashar al Assad, the butcher Assad, is now in Moscow. Now we're seeing reports from legacy media about mass graves and the brutal torturing from Bashar al Assad in prisons. We showed you the fake story from CNN, which has now been debunked. But now, the story of mass graves has emerged. The butcher Assad was at it once again. Is this truth, or is this legacy media spinning propaganda? We wanted to ask Dan Cohen from Uncaptured Media, who's been on this story and has spent quite a bit of time in this region, and he knows the lies. Dan, great to see you. Welcome back to the show.
Good to be with you.
So we see these stories. Of course, we saw the CNN story, the fake prisoner story that they put out. We've seen, of course, all sorts of stories about Assad over the past few weeks. But the latest story over the past 48 hours is the story of mass graves, and apparently at the hand of Assad. Now that they've gotten in there and Assad is gone, the bulldozers have come in, and what they have found is just atrocious. Is this the truth, or is this fiction once again?
Well, so, yeah, we've seen what I would call a propaganda deluge over the past few days regarding Syria, essentially trying to cement the narrative, this narrative that Assad was this brutal mass murderer dictator, and the opposition to Assad were a bunch of peaceful hippies who just wanted to reform the government. And the reality is that Syria was subjected to a 14-year dirty war. The CIA spent $1 billion per year arming and training all kinds of terrorist groups to rampage through Syria and try to collapse the government. And these terrorist groups were open about their intentions to exterminate religious minorities, of which there are many in Syria, and the Assad family itself is from the Alawite sect, which is a small minority, and so these groups are being completely whitewashed. There's a huge amount of deaths in Syria. There is no doubt that there are many bodies under dirt in different places, people who have died in this war. And there are many people who are looking to know what exactly happened to their families, who maybe weren't involved in politics or anything, who just lost their loved ones. But what's going on is the media is taking this tragedy and whitewashing it and trying to portray these. Well, for example, there's a report, a 10-minute report from the British Channel 4 that says this field has 100 to 150,000 or more dead bodies under it who are victims of Assad. And all you see are drone shots of a field, and you meet someone who claims to have been the guy who poured dirt over these bodies. But there's not a shred of evidence. And the fact is that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we do not see that evidence. And so what we're seeing in the media is this hyper focus on these alleged mass graves with these sensationalist headlines, and the evidence is not there to match it up. So I think what we're going to see in the coming days is skeletons being exhumed, but the media is not going to bother to ask, hey, who are these people that were killed? How were they killed? Which side were they on? Anything like that. It is just going to be, this is all because of Bashar al Assad. And it's also being used to normalize and whitewash the genocide that the West is supporting in Gaza, which Gaza is the world's largest mass grave. It's a mass grave in which there are still living people. There are walking dead waiting to be killed in this mass grave. But the media, the Eye of Sauron, has totally turned towards Syria with these sensationalist headlines. And what they're trying to do is not only normalize it and say, well, yeah, okay, Gaza's bad, but Syria is even worse with these totally evidence-free numbers of 150,000 in a single field. They're trying to basically write the history right now. So then when kids go and learn the history in 10 or 20 or 30 years of what happened in Syria and what happened in the Middle East in this period, the Gaza genocide, which is the greatest crime of this century, is going to be a footnote to this phony narrative of an Assad genocide, and they're going to completely erase Al Qaeda and ISIS and Ahrar al-Sham and the West from their complicity in the primary reason that there are so many deaths in Syria.
You know, I guess to the victors go the history books, right? They get to write the history here, so they get to tell the lies about what's happening inside of Syria. And as you and I are talking, Israel has launched a new round of attacks in Yemen. So now there's literally 4 fronts that Israel, different countries that Israel is currently attacking and going after. I mean, if you want to include Gaza, include Syria, include Yemen, include Lebanon, and all of the mass media, of course, is focused now on the butcher Assad.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Israel is currently committing genocide, and the media has basically moved on. I mean, there was a strike on in Yemen on Wednesday night, or I guess Thursday early morning Yemen time, that 10 people were killed, and that's just treated like nothing. This is a total afterthought. I mean, the constant massacres in Gaza, the media has just totally moved on from. It doesn't even generate a headline. It's incredible. So the way that this is being normalized in our minds, that we're just supposed to pretend that seeing babies with their heads blown off and toddlers covered in pockmarks from shrapnel and screaming mothers and fathers and grieving people, we're supposed to just pretend, well, this is just normal and there's nothing we can do about it, when the fact is that all those decisions, the decision to keep that going, is being made here in Washington. Again, just as it's been for the past 14, 15 months. If the United States wanted to end this genocide, it could do it today. And the only reason that Yemen is launching strikes on Israel is because of this genocide. And that's the reason that Hezbollah got involved. That's the reason for all of this. So it just goes to show the lengths that our government will go to in order to allow Israel to carry out this heinous crime, and how the propaganda works they can't really justify it, so they just try to normalize it.
Right now, it's just Israel's the victim, and so we should just all accept genocide. You should be perfectly fine as you're preparing for your Christmas dinner to know that children are being slaughtered in Gaza, and that should be okay. It should never be okay. And the outrage should be loud and palpable, and the Biden administration has just gone right along with it and facilitated all of this. With Syria, of course, we had Netanyahu arriving in Syria. There's, I think, a meeting between Jolani, the new head of Syria, who is, former al-Nusra, al-Qaeda terrorist. Still, I shouldn't say former. I know CNN is trying to rebrand him as like our new friend, like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. But now you see, as you want to talk about videos here, videos emerging of those Syrian freedom fighters, aka al-Qaeda terrorists, working with Israel. Can you explain what's going on now in Syria?
Right. So as much as the new Syrian regime and its supporters want to pretend that it's not in bed with Israel, in fact, all along, since the very beginning of the Syrian crisis, Israel has been involved. Actually, there's an Israeli singer named Amir Benayoun who provided what became the anthem for the early Syrian, protests, if we can call them that. And that relationship has continued as Israel has provided arms and funding and medical care for so-called Syrian rebels. And since the collapse of the Syrian government and the withdrawal of the Syrian military and its collapse too, video has just been published by Israel's Channel 12 of Syrian militants in the Golan Heights in the south of Syria actually collecting weapons caches that belong to the Syrian military and handing them over to Israeli soldiers who are occupying their country. So these guys are saying, well, we actually liberated the country from this cruel dictatorship, Assad, but we are giving weapons to this foreign power that is literally occupying our land, that just expanded its occupation, that just is bombing everything in sight in Syria, that just destroyed all of the defensive capabilities and offensive, that has just completely neutered Syria from the weakened state it was already in. So they're actually giving weapons to their supposed enemies. So these are not rebels. These are proxies. These are Israeli proxies. That's why they're doing what they're doing. The coordination has been there all along. It's been an open secret to anyone who pays attention. But, we still have people who ostensibly oppose the Gaza genocide who are celebrating this, who are celebrating what is a total Israeli victory, and Turkish, but Israeli victory in Syria, and they want to pretend that this is actually good for Gaza. So it's, they want to say we're going up and actually you're going down. It's just crazy.
I'll get you out of here on this, Dan. When you look at these mass graves, this mass grave story, are there any sort of international plans for testing of the bodies, DNA testing, or anything like that? Has there been any sort of, international outcry to come in and make sure that this isn't meddled with by Israel or the CIA or sort of other liars?
Sadly, it's actually just the opposite. Instead of taking the UN comes in, or some kind of international unbiased body comes in and examines these graves, and however many people are in there, it's the complete opposite. Who's being sent in to exhume bodies from graves of all sizes, whether it's 1 or 5 people? It's the white helmets, which are a propaganda construct conceived of by the MI6, British intelligence, funded by the United States, funded by Qatar, that worked hand in glove with Al-Qaeda and with ISIS for years to either document atrocities or actually stage them. They've even actually staged videos. They show their capability of staging atrocities where they can cover themselves in whatever kind of makeup to appear, and put rubble all around to appear that they are victims of some bombing. And they've been caught actually faking this. So not only that, when they were involved in Idlib province, I believe in the alleged Khan Sheikhoun supposed chemical weapon attack. I think in 2018. I'd have to look exactly at the year. But there was a huge scandal because they claimed that the OPCW, Europe claimed, and the U.S. claimed that Assad had carried out a chemical weapons attack, and we tested materials to prove it. When actually those who collected those materials were the white helmets themselves. And so there was a break in the chain of custody. So the sample that they took could not be trusted. So these are professional meddlers. They are a disinformation operation who work on behalf of their funders, who have been against the Syrian government all along and working, funding Al-Qaeda. I mean, this is the craziest thing. So that's who's being sent in to exhume bodies, is basically a professional disinformation operation.
Professional liars, professional propagandists who are so good they can fake rubble. I mean, we saw what happened in Douma, of course, the fake chemical gas attack from Assad that never happened has been widely debunked now. They were intimately involved in that fakery as well. Oh, my God. Well, thank God for journalists like yourself, Dan, who are telling the truth. I know it might be hard for some people who are watching this to believe it. I think there are probably a lot of people watching this who've swallowed a lot of the propaganda over the years, and it's uncomfortable. I think it's uncomfortable sometimes to be red-pilled, to be awakened. It's more comfortable to be wrapped in a blanket of disinformation. That's how CNN makes their money. That's how legacy media makes their money. You can just sit there on the couch wrapped in a blanket of lies, and that's where most people find comfort. But thank you for being uncomfortable and bringing the truth to us, Dan. It's great to see you as always, and hope you have a good Christmas with your family. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Clayton. Truth is freedom, and that's our ultimate pursuit wherever it takes us. And I know that's the doctrine that you and Natalie take at Redacted. So that's what it's all about.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you.